Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Coders Startup Podcast, episode number 45?
It was 45 last I checked.
It was 45 last we checked. We're terrible at this. So yes, welcome to the show. You can hear Carter's back from his lovely vacation in the Mexico in the beautiful sun, and I'm glad to have him back by my side. And believe it or not, out here in the Great White North, it's like a balmy 76 degrees or something like that. Very,
Really?
very abnormal. We're recording this on November 5th. I went for a walk in shorts and t-shirt in November in Canada. I mean, that just doesn't happen very often. So I'm just, it's been like that for the past 3 days. I'm loving it, and I know it's not going to last. So how was your little getaway vacation in the sun? Are you?
It was great, and I've noticed something, and I love this. That for me, a 5-day vacation feels like I've been gone for 10 days. Like I am itching to get back and get in the swing of things. So I think that's a good thing. You know, I love that I can take 5-day vacations and have it feel like 10 days versus I hear a lot of people say, oh, it wasn't long enough. Had a great time. Weather was fantastic. You know, everything was great. Got to read 2 new books, which was great. So yeah, glad to be back at it. And it's been a busy week. So loving that, and excited about recording this show. So
yeah, man. It's always a highlight, man. I love podcasting and stuff. And I mean, you make a good point with respect to entrepreneurship. I mean, I felt that I felt that a lot in the past when it comes to sort of itching to get back to work. And that's when you know you're doing the right thing, when you're feeling that and you want to stop the vacation and get back to real life. So I love that feeling. Isn't it great to be entrepreneurs and have this, like, to reach out and do something that such a small fraction of the population actually do. I mean, when you think about it, how many people in the world can actually call themselves entrepreneurs? I mean, we're surrounded by entrepreneurs because we're in the community and we live it every day. But if you step back and think about the vast number of people in the world, I mean, we're part of an elite group of people, not just we as in Carter and I, but we as in the people, also you guys listening to this podcast and watching us. We really are in an elite group of people. So you need to remember that. Anyway, so off of that touchy-feely note and more on to the topic for this week, which Carter and I, of course, decided on the last minute, something that's top of mind right now, and that is analytics and how to apply them and know your numbers. So it's your numbers and your analytics. It's everything that I'm sure you guys are all about, being fellow coders and whatnot. So let's dive into it.
Well, and I feel like too, why this is so relevant and why I brought it up as something that I thought would be a really good topic for us to talk about is so often you hear people say like, know your numbers. But how often just in our mastermind group do we get on a call and one of us asks, another a question and we're like, I don't know the answer to that. Like, and it's something that's very numerical based. Like it's right there. So I think one of the biggest challenges with knowing your numbers is figuring out a consistent process to gather that information, record it, analyze it, and then make strategic moves based on it. And so that's kind of some of the stuff that I was going to talk about. Go for it. Do you want to jump into your stuff first?
I was right about to say, what can you do and what can you use to have sort of this process of tracking your numbers automated or some way? Because if it's not automated or if it's not something that is in your routine, then you're just not going to do it. So,
well, and I'm gonna challenge you on something there because I found the numbers that I pay the most attention to and that like the process sticks, and then I really understand what's going on with my business and my personal life and everything else with these numbers is when it wasn't automated at first. So, I mean, automated in the sense that it could actually be displayed if you're looking at Facebook ads or whatever, but non-automated in the sense that you actually wrote down that number or put it in a spreadsheet in a specific cell that you populated and then you use a formula. And I remember in school, so for those, I've said it before, but for new listeners, I'm a finance guy. And in school, we had to learn all these complicated financial equations by hand, while at the same time, we had this fancy $100 financial calculator we were required to buy that, 2 pushes of the button and you're good to go. But it isn't until you actually understand it and do it by hand that's when you get a real flow of things. Do you see what I'm saying, Trevor? Does that make sense?
It's funny that you say it that way, because as soon as you started saying it, I was like, oh, it's true. That's exactly what I'm doing for my tracking my numbers on a new Tripwire product that I introduced. So I introduced a new product, and it's a $27 product I call the Java Quick Start course. So it's essentially a series of 9 videos, a subset of my 52 videos. So I just pulled, what I sell for $4.97, the 52 videos, pulled 9 of them out, sold them for 27. That's a Tripwire. And it's something that's new. So I'm tracking the figures, and that process of tracking it's taking data from my Vimeo account. So it's like YouTube, but you can hide your videos on Vimeo, which is why I use it. So I take the views of the video there, the sales video. I take some metrics from Send Owl, which is my shopping cart solution right now. I take some metrics from there, and I sort of take the Google Analytics. I put it all together in a spreadsheet, and I calculate, a bunch of relevant things. Like I calculate the number of visitors landing on the sales page based on the views of the video, because I can't trust the lead pages analytics because they get reset all the time. So I look at the video views for the number of visits. I look at the number of people who clicked on the buy button. I can do that with Send Owl. Or you can go to codersstartup.com/sendowl if you are interested in a shopping cart solution that's simple to use. And then you go, and I can look at how many people actually purchased the product. So I can see sort of a breakdown of those 3 numbers together. I can get a lot of data from that. And I've created an Excel spreadsheet. I shouldn't say Excel, a Google Drive spreadsheet, whatever they call it, a sheet, I think. And I do that manually. So you're absolutely right. I know those numbers now. I know my conversion rate is over 3% for that particular product, which is actually quite good. That means I'm onto something, because generally it's 1 or 2% is average. So 3% means I'm doing something correctly.
And you understand the flow, the feel of it. You know what I mean? Like the first time I really understood this was when I got serious about my own personal finances. And I started breaking down on a monthly basis, not just for my business, but hey, what am I spending on every little detail, and tracking that every month. And I would do it by hand. And then you really start to get a feel for how, this thing over here that you're like, oh, that was a one-time thing. I had to get new tires on the car. But you understand how it actually affects the overall bigger picture. And I'm a huge fan of doing things by hand before automating it. And I know that's not necessarily scalable for the direction I want to go with owning, a ton of different businesses and stuff. But at the same time, I feel like if I can just keep hammering the fundamentals into my head, then hopefully it transitions a little bit better.
And then you can hire a programmer to create like a dashboard for you that pulls it all in.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good transition. Let's talk about some of the things I can share, some of the things that we do in my business, and then, some of the things that I track and how I gather those numbers, and then you can do the same. You want to do that?
Sure.
Okay. So for me, this used to be a headache, and it still is. It's still a headache. I'm not going to say it used to be, but we do a ton of different reports for clients, and it's not always the same templated format, because we're doing these custom campaigns for each client. So it's not necessarily the exact same report. And really, to give that quality that we go for, we don't have like, hey, just this statistic that we consistently pull. Each campaign is different. Each campaign requires different details. So we create reports on a custom basis for each client, usually once a month. Some are a little bit more often. And we use the obvious big aggregators of data like the Google Analytics, SpyFu, Google Webmaster, stuff like that that's relevant to the search field. And then also just reviewing that data and anything else that we come across internally on their website, we'll go ahead and report and document that. One like little tidbit with doing reports like this, I found it's always good to have a way to easily compare month over month or whatever reporting time period that you're working with. So if you're reporting stuff on a weekly basis, make sure you can quickly look at that report for that week and compare it to last week's report and the week before that. We really started to elevate, I feel like, our internal operations when we created a format that allowed us to quickly analyze, hey, this is what we reported on last time. And these were some of the goals that we mentioned that we were going to be going after. And then being able to say, hey, this is what happened with those goals, or this is what didn't happen. So that's a big part on the client level that we do for reporting. Right now, we're in the process of putting together a strong push for Instagram stuff, and I can talk more about that at the end. And one of the things we're doing is figuring out what KPIs we're going to be tracking. So KPIs, we mentioned them before, but that stands for key performance indicators. And these are kind of the driving gears of your business, if you will. So for example, my team and I, we've figured out there's a few different things that we really want to track and see how that correlates to the actual net profit, what we're bringing home, bottom line. And monitoring those week after week, month after month, we can start to identify correlations and different trends where if we know, hey, we generate X amount of interaction in terms of likes on Instagram, then that, we can see that's going to lead to 2 new customers or 3 new customers, whatever that is. So we're using a few different just basic Instagram analytic tools for that. And then we're manually uploading that data every week into a spreadsheet so we can look at it for our reports week after week. Again, one thing to keep in mind is you want to be consistent with this stuff. So if I were you, I would create just a time during the week or a habit that you have that is already really strong and in place and anchor that to this. So like I have an alarm on my calendar before our weekly team meeting to just compile all those numbers and we have them. And that way, I'm going to have to report them to the team. It's not going to fall through. And I know when it's going to happen, when I'm going to do those versus just, hey, I'll compile it when I have time type mentality. Man, I need to take a second to breathe. Been talking for a while.
It's good. I like it.
Go ahead and interject, Trevor.
Yeah. So the one sort of thing that came up while you were saying that near the end there is you're talking about setting up a habit or something. I've been doing a tip or trick that I can give to you guys that I've been doing of late is this is actually only works for people with iPhones. So I apologize for people who don't have iPhones. The Reminders app, I think in the latest update for the iPhone, when you set up any reminder, before when you had a reminder, it would come up on the phone and say, hey, don't forget to do whatever it is that you need to do. And it didn't matter if you marked that reminder as completed or not completed or whatever. As soon as you sort of swiped to the right and logged in or did whatever to the phone, the reminder would be, it would disappear.
Yeah.
And, not helpful. Now it continues to remain on your, on the notification part. Like if you get a text message and you haven't unlocked your phone yet, it's in the notification area. It stays there indefinitely until you go in and mark that thing as complete.
Fantastic.
So I've shifted my entire life into reminders, and you can do recurring reminders. So I have weekly reminders, monthly. I have reminders to pay bills and put the stuff on, what's it called, the Advantage or whatever for the dogs, the flea and whatever.
Oh yeah, pet maintenance, all that good stuff.
Exactly, pet maintenance stuff and check-ins with teammates and everything is a reminder now on my phone, and it doesn't go away until and that pisses me off to no end when I have a reminder that just keeps on being there, and it motivates you to do the work to get rid of it, and it works really well for me. So that's
totally. And the other thing I like about that is my roommate, he doesn't listen to the show, so I'll go ahead and just
roommate bashing time.
Yeah. God bless him. He's all over the place with thoughts in his head and stuff that's going on. And he has transitioned to a to-do list, checklist, which is great, putting it on paper. But to the point I'm making, anytime you can get all of that out of your head where it's not occupying your mind, I mean, I tell you, it's amazing. And I did not start doing this until I was probably after college. I was one of those kids, I never wrote down the homework assignments or anything. And it was a disaster. If someone had just showed me, hey, get it out of your head, put it on put it on the paper, put it in your phone, whatever, you're going to be so much more free to operate and do other things. So I love that you're using reminders. I use my calendar, and it just systemizes it. We don't have to, forget about it, or we don't have to remember it.
Yeah.
My one fear is if there was ever some crazy data blackout or something.
Yeah. So data blackouts aside, I used to use the calendar, but I find the calendar, it'll remind you, or it'll be there before the event, and it will be there during the event. But as soon as the event in the calendar scheduled is done, you don't see the reminder anymore, right?
I just create it as like an event for the day. And
the whole day, I see.
Yeah, and so part of my morning routine is I just look at my calendar, because I'm still a pen and paper guy. I like to plan out my day, writing out what I'm doing. And then looking at the calendar, though, it'll be like compile KPIs, and I'll write that down.
Say no more. That makes sense. Okay. Anyway, we're getting away from analytics here.
Yeah, we are.
So let's pull it back in. So I'll pick up the ball and run with it. Something that you may or may not be aware of is that Google Analytics. Well, first of all, if you don't have a Google Analytics account or something that is similar to a Google Analytics account, you got to do that. If you're running any sort of online business, you need to be tracking, the traffic and so on and so forth. So, and demographics and yeah. So if you don't have that going, then that's step one. Stop the podcast and go get something like a Google Analytics or equivalent, and get going with it. Now, if you do have Google Analytics, that's typically what people use to start out with, because it's free. And you may or may not be aware of something called goals inside of Google Analytics. I haven't done it in a while because I set up my goals way back when. But if you go to Google Analytics and you go to, I think, conversions, there's a goals section. And this is where you can set up, like I'm on my thing right now and I can see that I've got my goals set up properly, and I can see conversions and what they're worth. So what you do is, I think in the admin panel, you can set up, let me just see, somewhere, here it is, goals, the far right-hand corner of your admin. So you click on the admin tab, go over to goals, and you can create sort of a workflow for any type of goal that you can set up. So that could be a conversion, like a lead. So someone signs up for your email list. You can track that by saying, okay, if they visit any page and then land on this particular thank you page, you can count that as a goal. And you can say that's a conversion goal. Or you can count an e-commerce goal, like someone signed up for or purchased a product. You can set them up, and they hit this thank you page. Therefore, they're worth X number of dollars, and you can copy paste a little snippet of code and so on and so forth. So these goals and the e-commerce tools that are built into Google Analytics open up a huge sector for analyzing your data. And the reason why you might say, well, my application that I use to collect leads already tracks conversions. So for example, you're using Lead Pages. Lead Pages is very easy to use to track conversions. So you might, come back with, well, I don't need that because it's already tracking that for me. And okay, fair enough. That's fine for if you're just getting started. If you're just coming out of the gate, that's a great place to start. You're a beginner. I get it. Fine. But as you level up as an entrepreneur and get further and further down the path, sometimes just knowing that people converted is not enough. But when you do the Google Analytics and you set up goals in there, not only do you get the people who converted and the percentage at which a page is converting, but you can dive into the people who converted and see how old they are, what gender they are, where they're living, specifically what city they're in, all this other aggregate data, metadata, whatever it is around these specific goals that you're, using as conversions and whatnot. And it's very helpful to know these things, these numbers in your business. And it has a lot of applications. It has applications to how you market to these people. Because if you thought that your target market was, 18-year-old females and it's actually 65-year-old men, well, that might be a bit strange, but or extreme in the case. But anyway, it changes how you will approach your target audience, because your target audience aren't who you thought they were, and it changes your, obviously, the messaging, the way you're going to sell to them. Help me out here. What else does it change other than?
look at the opportunity, because we were talking
Yeah.
before the show, and Trevor ran some data, test to see on Facebook where people were buying. Was it Facebook specifically, or was it Google Analytics?
Well, with respect to the
The
states or
state.
whatever. Yeah, it was actually Google Analytics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for that example, taking that over to Facebook, if you were to have data and you knew the specific states where you're getting the most traction,
Mm.
you can advertise specifically for those, and you're going to get rewarded in terms of having a lower CTR and hopefully a higher conversion rate.
What's a CTR?
A click-through rate. Sorry.
Okay.
So
Why is a lower? You mean higher click-through rate?
you would have a higher click-through rate. Yeah.
And why is that important?
Well, because you want obviously more people visiting your page, and then the more clicks you get, the more Facebook's going to reward you and show that ad more for cheaper impressions, if you will. So
Right.
they're going to serve up what people are resonating with the most. So they're going to, this is all like edge rank stuff, which we can dork out on. But yeah, so it rewards you. Long story short, it rewards you. So knowing that data, yeah, it's just so powerful.
Yeah. So if you haven't already done so, set up some sort of analytics tool and get further into the analytics tool. Take a course. Although I say that I should what's the word I'm looking for? I should do what I say. No, listen, do as I say, not as I do. There you go. I haven't signed up for a course on Google Analytics, but I want to, because there's so much inside of there that I don't know that exists.
Oh.
There's remember the categories? There's the things that you don't know, which is like 97% of the world. You don't know that you don't know about, Google Analytics goals before you heard about it. Now you know that you don't know about it. So you sort of moved forward a bit, and then you got to switch from now you don't know about it, so now you got to start to know about it. And so it's the whole continuum there. So I'm sure there's so many things that I don't know about with respect to Google Analytics that could be useful to my business. So take a course on it. I'm sure there's some free like Udemy courses or something out there that you can take that would just
go on YouTube,
or there you go,
Google Analytics
training
or instructional or something, and you'll find tons of videos. It's amazing. I was learning some advanced financial projection modeling yesterday using YouTube, and but anyways, so as far as data goes, it comes back to a big thing: identifying what it is you're going to track and figuring out how to consistently track that. And we're not talking like, hey, I'm going to look at it, once in a while, every 2 weeks. No, like, get serious about it. Put down a date, put down a time, and pool that data. It's amazing. One of the guys in our mastermind, we went over his numbers, and he hadn't really looked at those, hadn't really figured them out, and we went over them. And for me, it was obvious, like, hey man, this is what you got to do. Like, you've been sitting on this opportunity, and we couldn't even figure out how to help him or talk about that until he had those data numbers. And now that he has it, he is like, oh man, can't wait to run this report this week. It's on clockwork, just because he can adjust his business and really understand what's going on there.
Yeah.
So.
And for me in my business, we did the same thing in the mastermind group to see, where it is that you're sort of where the blank spots are in your business. You can really help to get that, get clear on where you are blind when you go over these numbers. So we were doing this for my business, and it came out that Infusionsoft it's very difficult to measure the open rates and click-through rates overall for your emails that go out because of the way they implement it. And immediately all of you guys were like, well, you don't know the open rates and click-through rates for your emails that are going out? And I was like, yeah, no, I don't know them. And they were like, fix that. And I was like, yeah, I know. I got to do that. So
to a point of why this is such a powerful concept, this popped in my head, but consistently I hear like the thought leaders of business in general talking about the highest paid positions, the highest paid like value are going to be the quant marketers and the data scientists who understand how to extract this data and actually utilize it. And we're not saying by any means that's what you have to be, but just to a point, they were comparing that to like the quant financial people back in the 90s and the 80s and stuff. Like, it is just so powerful when you understand those numbers. And the reason being is, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say most people listening are working on something that's going to be online. You know, this is a coder startup. So
fair to say.
It's going to be online. And with online businesses, once you know those numbers, it becomes very easy to scale. I shouldn't say very easy, but it is almost arithmetic where you're like, hey, 2 of these, 3 of these, and away we go to Y. Like, that's just how it goes. But you can't get there unless you know your numbers. And I think Trevor and I, we both have, you know, we keep hitting this and getting better in our own right, just figuring out how to track numbers, how to project them, how to analyze them, how to consistently stay on top of them. Because I know it's something a year ago I wouldn't have even brought up in conversation as much.
I mean, when I finally, so Carter, being the, what's the word, omnipotent being that he is, ages ago, whatever it was, months, maybe a year ago, he said, hey, Trevor, you should probably, you know, as an idea, you should probably target your ads at people living in like California and New York, because that typically is where the meccas are for us programmers. And I know he already mentioned this, but he didn't go into detail about this story in this call right now. And I mean, it was based off of an assumption. I'm assuming is
what it was based off of was I knew that those states, Colorado, Texas, New York, have the largest population of users on there. So if anything, you can probably get a cheaper impression cost. That was kind of what I was going off of.
Exactly.
But yeah, keep rolling.
Yeah. So this is for ads, for Facebook ads. You know, target those states. And hopefully, you know, you'll do better for you. And I said, oh, okay, that's a good idea. So, and of course, I did nothing. Carter always has these bombshells that he drops. Like, Carter, you got to work harder on emphasizing them. That's your problem, because Carter has so much that he'll drop, and you skip by one of them, and it can be like the most helpful thing for your entire business if you just did it. But there's no emphasis. There's no faults anyway. Perfect. So Carter made this suggestion, and it wasn't until a couple nights ago, so this was maybe 3 nights ago, I was sort of up and I couldn't fall asleep. So I was on Google Analytics, and I ended up diving in and going to, because I had set up the e-commerce and goals stuff that we had just spoke about, you know, the transition from that. I had the revenue data for all these customers. So not only did I know that they converted into a customer, but I know specifically how much each customer was worth. And when I looked at the data, I already knew, okay, most of my sales come from the States, the United States. And I, like 90 to 95 to 98% of my sales come from the States. The rest come from, you know, I get more sales from South Africa and the Netherlands than I do from Canada. The next big chunk is from the UK and maybe Australia, but just in the grand scheme of things, tiny little crumbs of the pie. The whole pie comes from the States. So then I went into the States and I ordered each of the states by revenue, because you can do that in Google Analytics. And over the course of, from January 1st of this year to now, I ordered it from all this data from a great year that I've had. It's going to be a 6-figure year, hopefully, fingers crossed. And like number one by almost a landslide is California. So, and I'm sure I could probably even go into California and target the cities. There's probably an even, 80-20 at even further down is probably what I should do. But huge majority is coming from California. Next down was actually Florida, which was a bit strange to me. I can't figure out why there's so many customers in Florida with respect to learning how to program. Do you have any hypotheses there?
Well, I know we talked about at one point, I don't know if this rings true, when you were gathering customer data and stuff, there was one group that were people who were retiring or transitioning to
That's a good point.
So that's a very good
point. People in retirement will flock to learning how to code because it's a great exercise to keep your brain going. So that could very well be it.
And then the other side too, Florida is just a highly populated state. So what I was going to ask you, have you actually looked at the conversion metrics based on
No. So this because it's so new. I mean, I got so many other things I'm doing at this point, but because this is so new, I haven't gone further to it. But how powerful is this now that I know? So it's California, Florida, and then New York,
Mm-hmm.
and Colorado was certainly in that list, and like so on and so forth. So this is data that I have now mined and discovered, and have a very strong conclusion as to where my money is actually coming from. That what I can do so much with this now, like especially with ads and targeting these ads, especially if I just want to do California, or maybe I can, like I said, look at the cities within California that are bringing all the revenue and just target those cities. So now I can take I've uploaded my customer list. You guys might not have this yet, but a customer list that have at least 100 linked Facebook accounts to my customers that live in the US. So now I could generate a lookalike audience in Facebook based off of those 100 customers. So these people who have opened up their wallets and given me their credit card numbers and given me their money, the lookalike audience for that is going to be very valuable to my business. But that's 2 million people. So now I take the 2 million people in the States and I just put the targeting of California, or probably somewhere in the Valley or something like that. Now I can have a hyper targeted list to people who are going to be most likely hyper responsive to my advertisements. So my cost per lead and cost per customer acquisition, is going to drop most likely dramatically, because
Totally. And let's explain why too, because
wasted impressions is why.
Exactly. You're not advertising to people in Wyoming
and Montana and
so you're not wasting those eyeballs. And when you're advertising, they're saying, hey, we know these people meet these descriptions, and not all of them are going to buy, but we're going to serve it up to them because we got a better shot at converting those.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the key. So you show, let's say you pay per 1,000 impressions. Essentially, you pay, let's say, $1 for 1,000 impressions of your ad. That means someone has seen it in their news feed. That's an impression. So you pay for, let's say, per 1,000, you pay $1. So you pay $1 and you show 1,000 impressions to people in, like you said, Wyoming. How many coders are in Wyoming? I'm sure there's some. I'm sure there's a good handful, but per capita, it's going to be very low. So maybe out of the 1,000 impressions, maybe one person is going to click on that ad because they're interested, versus paying $1 and showing 1,000 impressions to people in the Valley in California. I'm pretty sure more than 1 in 1,000 is going to click on that, and that's going to lead to more signups, whether it be customers or just plain old leads to your email list. You're going to pay far less because you got to more people. You acquired more people for that same $1 that you paid for those 1,000 impressions. So very powerful to know where your customers are coming from.
Absolutely.
Beauty.
So, yeah, I mean, and just to kind of wrap it all up, data in general, just, figure out what it is you're going to track, figure out how to consistently track it, and then start just playing. Making adjustments, tweaking things here and there, and see what happens. Cause it's so great when you're doing that.
Yeah. Start with the most important metric first, whatever that is for your business. If you're trying to acquire users, then it's, user acquisitions. If you're trying to acquire revenue, obviously, then look at the sales and look at the conversion rates around the sales and whatnot. Whatever it is, the first key to your business, track that first, and then step back and say, okay, what's the next most important metric in my business? So Carter was alluding to, Instagram stuff, or maybe it's Facebook likes, or maybe it's, whatever. Be realistic. What is the next metric that will contribute to the success of your business? Most of the time, it's actually not Facebook likes. Okay.
Definitely not.
It's not. Okay. Having 1,000 likes on Facebook is great, but it's not going to move the needle anywhere unless you know how to engage with those 1,000 or 10,000 people or whatever in such a way that it moves the needle in the most important way in your business. User acquisition, revenue, I don't know, whatever it is that you're looking for in your business. So be realistic and track it. It's not that difficult. Sit down, start with pen and paper, and just bloody well do it. That's what you got to do. So there you go. Anything else that you want to throw in there before we move on to the next section of the podcast?
The closing regards. I didn't realize
No, the book of the week and app of the. I've got an app of the
book of
week.
the week and act of the week. No, I think that's it. I think that was a good sum up. So,
Beauty.
Any good books that you've read?
So I don't have a book, but I have an app. So I'll
Okay.
give you, by the time I've introduced my app and talked about it and then finished it, hopefully you'll have a book that you can recommend. Is that fair to say?
I got one right now I got it right next to me. So.
Okay. Well, you think about what you're going to say first. This app recommendation of the week comes from Noah Kagan. You might have already seen this from Noah, but sometimes I struggle with productivity. And the thing that just came out from Noah, he said that he uses this all the time and it works for him. It's called brain.fm. Have you ever heard of brain.fm? No. So you might be interested in this. So brain.fm is a website dedicated to playing music in the background that will increase your productivity. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, I'm not usually, I'm not a listener to music while I work because it distracts me. So I was like, I don't know. It's the sun's getting into my video camera here. I'm going to have to move a little bit with the sun. So anyway, I'm not a big fan of listening to music while I work because, it distracts me. And I wasn't going to be a believer in this. But I said, whatever. Noah Kagan's usually a pretty smart cookie, so I'll take his recommendation and check it out. Dude, this thing works. So what it is, it's not, you can't really classify it as music. It's more like it's an ambient noise that apparently there's some science behind it that interacts with the chemicals and the neurons and the craziness that's going on upstairs in your brain. And it focuses you. It's all about focus. And Carter's mouth is like wide open right now. He's loving it.
Yeah, I'm really interested in this.
So you go there and it's very specific. You go and you build a profile on what type of person you are. So like, are you a moody person? Are you someone who gets easily distracted? What types of distractions, is it just you lose focus, or is it like the shiny object syndrome, the squirrel, and so you build this whole profile around who you are, why, like how you operate. Are you really sleepy during the days? Is that the problem? Do you wake up and you feel refreshed, but then in the afternoon, all of a sudden you've dropped? And so they're very specific with your profile. And then based on all these questions and these answers, they build like this music profile for you. And again, you can't really say it's music because there's no lyrics. It's just ambient noise. It builds an ambient noise profile for you. And then you say, okay, what are the three things that you're doing? Are you passively working right now? So are you just sort of reading a book and you need a soundtrack for reading a book? Are you focusing intensely? Is this a hardcore work session right now? You're coding, you're, I don't know, writing important emails. I don't know. Then you choose that. Or are you trying to go to sleep? So you click on one of the three options and then you go and it generates and it just plays. And it's like 30-minute chunks of these.
Brain.fm. Huh?
Brain.fm. And oh my God. Like I've tried it 3 times, but each of the 3 times it worked. I mean, I was focused. Eventually you stop thinking about hearing the music and you're just in it and you're in flow and you're doing the work. And it's just,
that's awesome.
I don't know if it's the psychological aspect of, something's playing, so I want it to work, so therefore I'm going to be focused, or if it actually works. So anyway, there's a lot of studies behind it and that it really does work. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep going with it, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So there you go.
Sweet.
Brain.fm.
Book of the week. I'm not gonna recommend the book that I'm reading right now just because I think it'll bore most people to death. But I love it. I'm geeking out on it. But I will recommend something that I've been reading a lot more of, and I really, really enjoy. Harvard Business Review. They have a lot of case studies. They have a lot of just like interesting trends that are going on and stuff like that. And I find for me, it's so much easier to learn through case studies and hearing what other people are doing. And it doesn't read like a lot of the other magazines. I feel like it's more like, hey, this is what was going on. These were it kind of walks you through their view. So I really, really like that. I've been reading a lot more of it lately. And I suggest if you're interested in business in general, it's a great read. And then of course they have all these different like subsections, finance, marketing, technology, everything. So very cool stuff.
And I think if you're someone who, like me, prefers audio, I think they have a podcast, HBR IdeaCast.
Yeah. It's great. I've listened to it several times.
Oh, Harvard Business Review, HBR. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's they've
and I'm pretty sure their podcasts are even in subsections. So if you're just interested in management or just interested in finance, you can listen to those. Not positive,
so cool.
But yeah. So
Harvard HBR IdeaCast, Harvard Business Review on iTunes. Check it out.
Again, you can learn anything with the availability of information that's out there now.
That's right. It's almost like there's way more information out there that you'll ever need. It's all about how to find the information and be able to absorb it in a way that is efficient, that is most efficient. That's where the world is going, and that's why the information product business has been exploding and increasing every year with dollars spent, and because they present the information in a way that hopefully is easy to understand and comprehend and absorb, and therefore you act on it. That's why I'm in the info product market right now, and I'm loving it. So I look forward to continuing my info product empire that I have going on right now with respect to programming. So anyway,
awesome.
There you go. Let me run through my checklist here. Did I say everything that I wanted to talk about? I did. There we go. Beautiful. So there you go. That's all we need, ladies and gentlemen. Another successful episode of the Coder Startup Podcast. It's been episode number 45. You can check out the show notes, coderstartup.com/45. And also, while you're at it, check out unitedbusinessleaders.com and follow Mr. Carter Johnson on the Instagram. Is that what you want to
say? Actually follow, versus checking us out on our website. If you have Instagram, check us out, follow us. We're doing a lot of cool stuff there. And I think next episode, I'd love to dive into why I am 100% all in on Instagram. And I think our audience could really, really take advantage of it with their businesses. So maybe that's a topic idea if we wanted to do a little Instagram 101. And then in the meantime, get on, check it out.
I was just going on to Instagram right now to see if I can see him in my news feed, but I guess you can't really see it on the, for those of you who are trying to look at this, I went to United Business Leaders.
Our latest post,
and I look at the latest post.
So we're going to have a lot of stuff coming out. It's going to be some good stuff too. I'm excited.
Loving it. Loving it. Let's say that for next episode, and we can go from there with Instagram stuff. So awesome. Take care of yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you on the flip side, as Mr. JLD says. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.